You're listening to the SoleStrategies podcast with your hosts Z. Cohen Sanchez and Chris Abramson. If you're running for office or thinking about it, you're in the right place. We hope you enjoy the latest episode and thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. So, hey everybody, Z here from SoleStrategies. I have an awesome guest here, Devin. Devin, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Devin Boss. I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called Rose City Justice. We kind of came out of the protests that were a response to the murder of George Floyd. We're a domestic nonprofit corporation, and our goal is to continue to educate the community and kind of embolden people and give them the ground they need to stand on to make those great choices for themselves moving forward.
Nice. That's awesome. So one of the reasons why we love Rose City Justice so much is that here at SoleStrategies, you know, most people know what we do, but just to sort of recap, we work with candidates to make sure that they outraise their incumbents. This is something that's really important to us because at the end of the day, we do not have good representation. That's sort of the reason. I mean, there's a long history of why we're in this situation, right? Which we could get into a little bit. But the issues that we're seeing right now is that the people that are in these positions are not listening to the people. They're listening to corporations. They're listening to the people that are funding them. And so one of the reasons why there's so many reasons why we love you guys, but one of the main reasons why is that you guys have kept up such amazing momentum during this whole thing. And it hasn't been easy, I'm sure.
No.
And you could tell us a little bit about that, but it's really incredible with all these things going on right now. I mean, there's just so much happening. The world is flooded. I mean, we've got COVID and the Trump election and what happened to Bernie this year and everything. And you guys have really been able to keep people out.
Right.
And that's something that we haven't seen really, I don't think ever here in Portland. Have we reached the most amount of days in protests ever? Or?
I think the guys in the civil rights era might still be giving us a run for our money as far as boycotting the buses and whatnot.
Yeah.
But as far as modern day protests, I think we've gone as far as anybody's gone in recent memory.
Yeah, and we're still going.
And we're still going, going pretty strong. So. Yeah, I'm very proud of our city and what we've been able to do and the way that people have been showing up. Nothing's perfect for sure, but I mean, it's just nice to see people continue to be engaged in whatever way that they can be.
Totally. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you guys chose to form and why you think that this is so important right now? Why didn't we do this 3 years ago?
Yeah, we really formed as a response to something. It was a reaction. It was a very reactionary grouping. Everything happened organically, naturally. Nobody woke up and said it's time to form something. It's time to make something happen. Really, myself, other members of the organization, we all just kind of happened upon each other. One of the other co-founders, whose name is Darren Golden, I've known him since I was a child. Great guy. And I ran into him while I was down at the first protest, and then we ran into a couple of other members, and then we had this kind of original six with us, and we all marched together through the protest, and that's all we really wanted to do was be a part of something and stand up and show up. And by the end of the night, Darren had the megaphone in his hand. He asked me if I had anything to say, and I always have something to say. So I said something, and there was a good response to it, and we said to each other, same time, same place, and we kind of just went with that. And the more we went on, the more we pushed forward, the more it kind of seemed like naturally people were gravitating to us and following us, and so we decided to put a name to it. After we put a name to it, we decided to organize more. What are we doing? How are we doing it? And then that starts forming, and then we made the decision to actually incorporate and form an actual organization that could be an entity that protects the individuals. And so we went forward with that, and then everything else just kind of fell into place after that.
Nice, that's awesome. So how do you guys protect people? And first of all, can people donate to you guys too? Is that
Yeah, people can donate to us. We have a Cash App, PayPal, all those things. Rose City Justice. But yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, when we were out there doing these fishy activities. We wanted to make sure that we were protecting the individuals and giving them an entity that could take the brunt of that force, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's really important. So you were saying earlier that, you know, you're from Portland, born and raised. So can you tell us a little bit about, like, what has your experience been like growing up here in Portland? Like, how do you feel about our elected leaders? How do you just feel about this city in general?
The city has undergone a tremendous amount of changes since I've been a child, right? So, I mean, when I grew up, I had a very sandlot childhood. There were a lot of black kids, a lot of black postful youth in my neighborhood, everywhere, throughout the entire neighborhood. And we had stomping grounds. We had places that we all congregated in and, you know, saw as our second homes. You know, Whitaker. There were other restaurants, you know, spots where little knucklehead kids go and hang out and stay at and, you know, have like this middle ground of trouble. We're not in too much trouble, but we're obviously still being mischievous. And a lot of that has gone away now. And, you know, the city has transitioned into an era of modernity and, you know, continuing to upscale and push old Portland out, which unfortunately looked a lot like pushing black people out. You know, like, I have no problem with forward progress. It's just that it never really seemed like these black families were allowed to be a part of that progress. And, you know, you see these symbols that once meant something to me and the people who I grew up with, and they're gone. Whitaker's gone, you know, Mr. Burger's gone. Like, anything that meant anything to the black community has been uprooted and has been replaced with like a mud bay, or like, you know, the Whitaker school is just an empty lot. They didn't replace it with anything that could serve as like a new kind of haven for another generation of youth. It just turned into a vacant lot. And so what happened was everybody fragmented. People started peeling off one way or the other, and we lost all of our points of centralization.
Yeah.
And so, you know, once you take away all those points, it's you kind of remove like that stickiness that keeps us all together, that adhesive kind of quality of our neighborhood that kept us all together.
Yeah.
And so people just started splitting off, selling their houses, going this way, going that way, and, you know, you could see it over the years as people started fading away. And now myself, I feel like a ghost in my own neighborhood. I feel like a ghost in my own town. I feel like a stranger.
Yeah. I mean, could you even afford a house in your neighborhood?
No,
now?
I couldn't sell that house and then go back to a different. You know, you sell that house and find somewhere else.
Right, totally.
But yeah, the property of those properties have increased tremendously.
I mean, like, you can't find anything in Portland under like $1 million.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar to what happened in New York, like downtown. I mean, they literally just continue to push the black community further and further and further up until there's literally no place left. I mean, like, people are in Westchester and places like that, but it's nowhere near the city. Yeah. It's expensive to commute. They can't afford the houses there anymore. I mean, it's just, it's...
And, like, black families really used to be where, like, you know, the some of the hot spots in Portland now, like, those used to be black homes, black families. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say it was all black, but there was a lot of black life in those neighborhoods around places that people wanted to live in. And, you know, those places are, you know, people want those spots. Nobody wants to live out in the numbers. You know, everybody wants to live in a place where there's a hospital right here, there's a Walgreens right here, there's a mall right there. You know, those central points. And Northeast is a great spot for that. You know, especially the area that I live in. You know, you turn anywhere and there's an amazing place.
Totally.
So, you know, so it's unfortunate, but it is kind of the reality of growing up in this kind of city and being one of the few people that had my circumstances allowed us to stay, and it was just kind of sad watching people fade away.
Yeah, for sure. Are your parents still here? Or?
No, my family has since, you know, gone their own routes. You know, my brother is in Seattle, mom and sister in Texas, dad's also in Washington, so everybody's kind of all over the place. But you know, I'm proud to be holding it down for now, and I don't think we'll ever sell our family home because it means something. It means something to us.
Totally. No, I completely understand. So how do you feel, I mean, being that you've grown up here, it's sort of, I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of rare to meet somebody that, like, grew up in Portland. I mean,
yeah,
so
for sure.
many,
we're unicorns.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, tell me a little more, like, I mean, you've seen this sort of, like, shift and change of, like, elected leaders, right? Like, especially where you grew up. Like, how do you feel like things have gotten worse? Have they gotten better? Like, how do you sort of feel that whole, like, process has gone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people in those positions are doing, like, the bare minimum in order to just kind of assuage the community and kind of calm down the yelling, right? So it's like you do as little as possible and mask it as a great deed. And so I would like to see a little more imagination in those areas. You know, people like to say that can't happen, just because it hasn't happened. And it hasn't happened for a reason, because it benefits the people who are currently running those positions.
Totally.
Right? So it's like we need people that have more skin in the race, making those decisions and pushing that envelope.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, you don't have to speak on behalf of Rose City Justice if you guys haven't like discussed this yet, but how do you guys feel about just the electoral process in general? Like, do you feel like people should be involved? Do you feel like it's sort of secondary? Like, how do you guys just like feel about it in general?
Just in general,
as I said, you can always just answer as yourself if you guys haven't like talked about it in depth or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know, man. I mean, the process could definitely be improved, but I don't know if I'm the right person to say in what way.
Yeah, totally. No, I get that. But like, do you guys feel like change can't happen? I know a lot of people are just like, listen, we've done this for, forever, and just things have not changed.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel like there is space for change there, or do you think it's sort of just like hopeless at this point?
I think that we have to believe that there is change. You know, like, I think that trying to fix something using the same system that created the problem in the first place is a little bit of a contradictory kind of way to go about things. So yeah, I feel like something has to change, and we have to just like reimagine ways in which we can all coexist, right? It's like we've never seen this kind of uprising, and we've never seen like a world in which like police have like been drastically reformed, and so maybe the ways in which these changes have gone about aren't the right ways. Mm-hmm. And so, I would love to see some more imagination in that realm, and people kind of challenging what they think they know to be true.
Totally. I mean, we talk about this a lot, like the argument between defunding the police and, and whether that's possible or not, I guess, is the real
abolition
question.
kind of versus reformation type of deal.
Right, totally. And like, I just wonder, I mean, it's kind of interesting that you said, we have to reimagine the way things are, because the world's changed, right? I mean, things are not the way they were in the 50s.
Right.
So like, we didn't have social media 20 years ago, and so like that's really changed the game. So you're the first person that I've heard that has said that, and I think that's really powerful. I wonder, when it comes to like reform versus defund, like how do you guys feel about that? Just as as Black leaders in this city, like what does that mean, sort of, to you guys?
Well, I just really think that I think that having those conversations really just distracts from the point a lot. I think that reformation is on the way to defunding. So I think we just need to move towards that direction and not get so caught up in the details between that kind of distinguish the two. Because it's just any tactic that can be used to like keep us arguing with each other serves to kind of be counterproductive in a way to the end goal that we're trying to achieve. And I just want to see, like, I think that at some point there will always have to be some form of governing force to, but I just think that needs to look completely different. It needs to have a drastic overhaul. I mean, we need to completely uproot it and recreate it in our own image. Yeah. It's only created in one person's image right now. So I mean, that talk can happen as soon as we've diminished their budget, which is just astronomical. I mean, their budget is gigantic, and I think chipping away at that budget and reinvesting it in programs that promote healthy community, a community that doesn't need to be so heavily policed, and then completely uprooting that policing force and re-educating it, retraining it, and reframing it. Like, these are things that we can all start to talk about. But like right now, it's all just about getting it into check and restructuring it.
Totally. I saw something the other day that was just disgusting to me. It was like a police budget for one police uniform, like for their whole tear gas. And all that.
Yeah.
It was like $1,300 or something versus a nurse that's like fighting COVID is like $2.17 or something.
Oh, exactly.
And I work for the nurses union during the day, so whenever I think about this, I mean, the fact that our nurses haven't even had like COVID, protection, they haven't had PPE, and yet we have tear gas that's costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's literally giving people seizures. I've seen it.
So that they can continue to bully their own citizens and treat their citizens like foreign invaders.
Yeah, totally. And like I remember AOC had said, when we talk about defunding the police, we're talking about it looking like a rich neighborhood in this country, right?
Right.
Like rich neighborhoods don't have, they have police presence, but they don't have police presence like they do in black poor neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's not like an oppressive force.
Right, yeah. They get to know the people in the neighborhood, right? Like it becomes a collaboration and not somebody forcing themselves. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the way that everything has been set up is just so corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the ways that they look at different people. They look at a protester, and it's a very us versus them mentality, which is like that's a terrible start. So if we're out here and we're outraged and stuff, like there's not really a lot of listening going on. And those are things that are like in your face kind of revelations. It's like they don't get it.
Yeah.
Because you see cops out here ready to tear gas people with smiles on their face.
Yeah.
And it's like I would at least like feel conflicted about it. You
yeah,
know?
Exactly. I mean, you should, right? I mean, it shouldn't be so easy.
I just think that us versus them mentality is really sad to see. And it's like there's just a lot of forces that we have to fight against in order to make this like a successful mission. And one of the things is just deprogramming a lot of people, breaking down these barriers of like assumption of people's character and these implicit associations, right? And so a lot of that stuff is just inherent. It's just so problematic.
Yeah.
We have to. Those are the types of things that we have to fight against.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. So, I mean, I think it's really, we're coming up on the, 2020 election.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel? I mean, really, to me, it sort of feels like either way we're sort of screwed, right? But like, how do you guys feel about it? I mean, do you feel like, a vote for Biden right now is going to push us in the right direction? Do you feel like we're sort of screwed, or?
I don't think that either candidate is I wouldn't consider anything like a victory, right? I would consider one candidate obviously a loss, but at the end of the day, no matter what happens with this presidential election, this race, is people have to stay awake. Like they can't go back to sleep one way or the other. If Mr. Orangey loses, that doesn't mean that America is great, because America was never great before he came here and became our president. It was a crap show when Obama was president, because it's America. There was always racial tension and problems teeming underneath. It just took somebody foolhardy enough to expose all of it.
Yeah.
All
totally.
Trump did was expose the problems that have always existed in America.
Yeah.
And so now that they're out in the open, I encourage everybody to keep their eyes open and not to close them once it becomes just a little bit more convenient. A part of me really believes that if Biden gets elected, I'm just hoping that like it doesn't cut our forces down like by 15%.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that there's not that privileged class that is joined in because of the outrage of Trump and not because of the outrage of Black lives being lost.
Totally.
And so
powerful.
that's the main thing that I'm interested in seeing, is like who's here because of their own self-interest or because of the interests of humanity as a whole.
Totally. I'm with you. I mean, and it's, I think that one of the things we sort of, don't really think about, we think about elections like 4 weeks in advance, right?
Yeah.
or like 2 weeks, I mean, and sometimes even less than that. I read the other day that people decide who they're going to vote for sometimes 48 hours before. So,
right.
And that sort of shows our lack of engagement that we've had in this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I believe it's done on purpose. And one of the things that we've sort of noticed is that particularly in what we call, progressive cities, like Portland is considered quote unquote a progressive city,
right.
we still don't have primary challengers. Like literally, I mean, there are seats that people have been sitting in for 30 plus years
right.
and not been challenged.
Right.
And really just, it's incredible to see that nobody, everybody sort of thinks about the presidential level and like how big that is, but nobody wants to think about city council, right? Like nobody wants to think about, the city commissioner, who, by the way, makes so many decisions that affect police.
Right.
So yeah, how do you guys feel about like the local level seats, and are you guys sort of worried that people aren't challenging, or how do you guys feel about that?
I mean, I would definitely like to see people getting challenged, because that drives like quality up, right? I mean, that's why capitalism exists, right? It's like, it drives everything up. So for them not to take that same stance with something as important as those seats, I do think is interesting, because as long as you understand that if you don't do your job well, then you'll lose your job. You'll do your job well, but if you feel if you feel that good about the security of your job, then complacency is right around the corner.
Totally, yeah. I mean, they're just, if you're not being pushed, like, who cares, right?
Right,
I mean, if
right,
you're not being
exactly.
held accountable. And yeah, so one of the things that we're so focused on right now is really looking for people to run, right? In 2022, because we believe that as progressives, the way that we win our races isn't by buying a ton of ad time. We win our races at the door, right? Like, we win our races when we're having conversations like this with people that have never voted before, and there's so many of those people. It's insane.
Right.
And so to do that, we got to raise a lot of money, and we got to get a lot of momentum. And that's something that we think Rose City Justice is great at, is that you guys build momentum, you capitalize on it, and you keep people out. That's really what a people-powered movement is. And so, we're really looking for folks like in your circles and people that are out at these protests to really sort of step up and say, I could do this. This is something I could do. And people say all the time, well, I'm not qualified. And there's really no such thing, right? Like, as being qualified. I mean, a Harvard or Yale graduate, I mean, who really cares, right? Like, what matters is that you're out there on the front lines. Like, how do you guys feel about just that whole process? Like, I mean, do you guys feel like it's something that has been sort of an easy access point for you guys, or something that's been really hard?
As far as being in the position that we currently hold?
Yeah, and like to be able to, even think about the process of running and how that would like.
Oh yeah, I haven't given that a single thought. I mean, I'm really just a passionate, concerned black male in America. I play that role really well, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of experience other than the experience that I inherently have to be what I've been. And so that's been easy for me. This road hasn't been easy, but being who I've been inside the vehicle on this road has been easy.
Yeah.
If I have to be perfectly honest, though, I definitely haven't given a single thought to running for office. Yeah, it's not something that I've ever thought about. Like, when I think about myself, I don't think about positions like that, because unfortunately, I'm super genuine, and I don't think that that's a place for super genuine people to go. It's a place for genuine people to get their hearts broken.
Yeah, well, there's truth to that, right? But I think that there is space for maybe not you in particular, because you hold such like an important role in this protest movement, and so to take away from that, I think would be terrible. But the people that are sort of here and doing this work with you guys, I mean, to have, there's a reason why Bernie became as popular as he did, right? Like, we saw this sort of a real genuine aspect to him, right? Like, this person is really in this for the right reasons, like he's a working class people like us. And that's something that I think we're really lacking now, is that, we have all these people that are sort of the bourgeoisie class, that sort of get these positions, and because they have a lot of money connections and they have a lot of easy sort of access points that we don't have.
Yes, that elitism.
Yeah, and particularly, I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about the sort of process for people of color, and like not asking you to sort of speak for everybody, but you sort of live this life, and so like thinking about like AOC has sort of broken that wall a little bit, and Rashida and Ilhan and this sort of new group, but sort of just like give us sort of like an overview about how you sort of feel about that, about that whole process and how it has or hasn't been accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke on it a little bit earlier. It's just like, a lot of people, a lot of black people, a lot of minorities aren't really raised they're not really raised in the same way that a lot of white people are raised. Like a lot of my white friends, they just have like what seems like to be this innate knowledge of like politics and business and certain things. And I think a lot of that has to do with your upbringing and the luxuries that you might have been afforded because you had parents that both had really good jobs, or parents that didn't have to like I spoke to you earlier about like my parents didn't really have time to like educate me on politics or like read newspapers and things to me like that. I mean, my dad and my mom were both working like 2 jobs, or working a job and going to school full time, and I was getting raised by the TV in my kitchen often. They were putting food on the table. And so it's just kind of a different dynamic, a different family dynamic, and I think that plays a huge role in the things that you prioritize in your life.
Totally.
When you're raised, when the people that raise you, like they kind of signify like a need to survive first. Like we need to survive first before we can at the, like, to me it almost is like a luxury just being able to worry about politics. It's like that's like that's not second nature. For a second nature is like, let's make sure that we have food, let's make sure that we have everything that we need to keep the lights on. And yeah, like now my life has gotten into a point, you know, a few years ago I got to a point where it was like, oh, I have a good job, and I really started being able to focus on, but it's like, you know, you never really had time like that coming up, and so and that's why you see a lot of black people that don't even look in the direction of politics. First of all, we don't see people that look like us there. We don't see the value in it. You know, and I would really like to change that, and I would like to get more black people inspired and seeing the purpose and the importance of getting in that game, getting in that fight, and you know, there's a lot that black people have to add to that realm. Mexican people too, like the BIPOCs in general. Like, I think that more representation will obviously point us in the right direction. I think that movements like the one that we're currently engaged in, like you can see the difference between when it's led by black people and when it's not led by black people. You know, when it has the heart in the chest and when it's just an empty vessel. You know, I think it's super important to make sure that you have representation, because otherwise the intention behind it is going to completely dictate. It's going to determine which way you go.
Yeah, for sure. I feel it, like when it's black led versus not. When you're in the crowd, you get that like vibe. I know what you're sort of talking about. It's very different, and that's why, you know. And of course, when it's black led, I mean, it's just so much more powerful. It's so much more, you know, directed, because you guys are the folks experiencing this, and so to be able to lead that and to really sort of take charge of that, I think is just so invaluable and important. And so, you know, if one of the things that we are so focused on is, as I said, getting people of color through the door to us and letting us help them sort of build out that campaign, and letting us help them to raise that money so they can outraise their incumbents, and give them the encouragement that they really need to get there, because we are organizers. You know, we're all former AOC Bernie staff. We're not in this to, you know, work with centrists. We're in this to work with real working class people. That's what we care about. And particularly people of color here in Portland. I mean, we need better representation. Ted Wheeler, gotta go. I mean, really, like, you know, I mean, really gotta go. And there's so many more. I mean, it's not even just Ted Wheeler, right? Like, it's just every level, everywhere.
Like acting like Ted Wheeler or Trump is like the source of the problem is always funny to me, because it's like acting like the problem hasn't existed since America existed. So the problem is America, and America needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, what am I contributing to the problem? Not am I. Like, what am I contributing to the problem? I think most people in this country should take time out to ask themselves what they're contributing, and to reverse that process and stop kind of pointing the finger at everybody else, and just try to make sure that your backyard is clean first before you try to clean somebody else's. So it's a multifaceted issue. It's layered, it's dynamic, it's complex, and so I'm all for getting very problematic people out of positions of power, but making sure that we keep full scope of like the exact like what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to have self-reflection. So if we don't, we're just churning over new people into positions that are problematic.
Right? He's a problem, but the system is the problem.
The system's the problem, right?
Like Trump is, he's a jackass, and he's wielding the power of America in a way that's very problematic. But the tool, the system, all of that is the problem. You know, he sucks, but the system, once he's gone, who's to say that another person with sweet words and ill intentions can't do the same thing?
Totally. No, I agree. I mean, and it's interesting because, you know, and I think that this is why Bernie sort of became as popular as he did, because he was the first person that really said the system is just has failed us, right? Like, and I mean, and it, you know, the problem sort of comes down to is the money in politics, and like how that sort of dictates the way that we sort of run things. I mean, the private prison system. I mean, all these things have sort of led us to, we got to take a hard look at ourselves. You know, I'm with you there. It's problematic, but you know, I'm really glad that you guys are doing this. Like, I'm truly, I thank you guys for putting not just, you know, your own bodies on the line, but helping others when they do that as well. I think is so important. Like, so you were telling us how you guys sort of connected to any bail funds or anything like that?
We have assisted. We've never actually, I don't think we've ever actually put one up ourselves, but we've promoted other ones, and donated to other ones. So that's kind of, you know, it's if there's already something that's been, no need to remake the wheel. So if there's already a fund, we can just use our platform to promote it and to try and get funds pushed into that direction.
Totally. Awesome. So do you guys think it's a good idea for folks in your sort of circles to get up and run?
You know, I think people should definitely crawl and walk first.
Yeah.
I never want to, you know, me and my group, we're very passionate and we have, you know, our hearts are in the right places, but I just want to make sure that they stay in the right places and aren't clouded by aspirations such as those. When things happen naturally, I think that's like the healthiest way. And so if that is in any way, shape, or form something that is right for anybody in my organization, I'm sure that it will come into fruition in the right time.
Yeah.
But right now, I think the most important thing is just like serving the community and like figuring out how to stay as adaptable and agile as possible in order to meet the immediate needs of the people that need us, like right now.
Totally. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that you guys, you know, I mean, the fact that you guys have built something this powerful, I think really says something about how you guys have sort of, I mean, taken something really horribly painful. I mean, I know that this has sort of been happening forever, but, you know, just this year in particular, the things that have come to light have been really painful, and I'm glad that you guys are sort of, you know, nobody's just sort of retreated. You guys are out there, and you guys are, you know, making the noise, and that's so important. So I just want to say again, thank you so much, like, for being here, for talking with us. Yeah. You know, tell them again your Cash App, all that. So donate to Rose City Justice.
Oh yeah, it's all Rose City Justice. PayPal Rose City Justice, Venmo Rose City Justice, Cash App Rose City Justice 6.
6. Love that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, much appreciated. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna continue to be out here. I'm a black man from Portland, Oregon, and it's gonna take a bullet to stop me from fighting for black people. So
awesome, that's great. And when we're out here as allies with you. So guys, seriously, please donate to this group, to Rose City Justice. Out of all the places that I can think that you should be donating to, these guys are the ones you should be, because this is real. Your money will be really sort of going to the real sort of street action that we need. So please donate whatever you can, and we will see you soon. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.